It's really lovely to see such a packed out venue before we even start the talk. This one's a bit different. It's quite special. I was having a bit of a chat to Troy and Lydia backstage, and this is an opportunity to be able to provide the platform for us to sort of talk about some of the bigger issues and things happening that maybe don't get the chance when you're up on stage with a 45-minute performance slot. And I think that with that in mind, I think it's going to be a really special conversation. So, I'll give a little bit of background, but I'm sure you know who both of these folks are. So Troy, a proud Gumbangir and Bunjalung man, and a country music icon.
Thank you very much.
And we have Lydia Fairhall, a Worimi woman with a well-established career in First Nations art leadership. I'm not going to say too much because we've got a whole hour to open up the discussion, but the title of this conversation is Ancient Culture, New Conversations with Troy Cassar-Daley. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Troy, hello.
Lovely to see you, Lydia, and thank you very much for taking the time. I want to send my love and my blessings out to Rhoda Roberts, who's not doing great. She sometimes did these things as well, and I remember having a lot to do with her in the early days too, at Boomerang Festival and things like that, so I'm just sending some healing thoughts to her, and thank you very much for taking the time, Lydia, as well.
Thank you. I agree. I won't even pretend to fill Auntie Rhoda's shoes or even give it a go. They're way too big. But so many of us are beneficiaries of her legacy. The doors she's opened for us in First Nations art. She programmed me here for my first gig many, many moons ago. So it's a real honour to be taking her spot here today.
Me too.
Yes. We will acknowledge that we're gathered on the homelands of the Yinarrabara people, and we pay our deep respects to the old people of this land whose spiritual presence and lore is just as active and alive here today as it always was. And I extend that respect to the custodians who have got impossible and beautiful, mind-boggling job of really walking in two worlds. So my heart is full of gratitude for the community here.
I was actually at the elders camp this morning having a cup of tea, and then I realised I had to be somewhere at 9 o'clock, and it was 8:57.
Good luck.
Yeah, you haven't seen an old fella run for a while, but it was good to run, and I got over there and I realised I had to be there at 9:30, so I was all right.
All good.
I think they just did it to stir me up. But it was a beautiful talk with the old people, just down from where I'm camped in my swag. I did get offered a room here with air conditioning.
The half-star Hilton, is that the...
Yeah, but I've just come back from a men's camp a few weeks ago, and I had looked at my swag and I went, well, it wasn't too bad for the men's camp, so it's good enough for Woodford. So it's been beautiful, under the tree.
So we've got a lot to cover.
Yep.
We're going to be talking a lot about country music and its reckoning. But before we kind of get into that, I'd love to begin by talking about your road into it. So you grew up on your own country, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
In Grafton?
Yes.
And can you talk to us about what music first felt like for you as a little fella on country?
Look, being on country in South Grafton was amazing. The first 10 years of my life was spent with my grandparents. My mum and dad broke up when I was very, very young. So that formative time when you're going from like 1 year old to 9 or 10 is pretty incredible with your grandparents. They taught us a lot. My nan smacked us when we were naughty and pulled us into line.
Was Nan in charge?
She was in charge. Yeah. Pop was the boss, but Nan was the real boss. And it was a beautiful way to be brought up. You know, you're brought up with a lot of love, but you had some discipline too. And you also had your culture that every day there was something to learn. And whether we were catching turtles at Kangi, or whether my grandfather arrived home one day and he had a porcupine in his tucker box that he dispatched and cooked on the coals for us one afternoon.
Wow.
And I didn't realise why they called them porcupine, but they taste just like pork. It's the only one I've ever eaten, by the way, but it was one of the most amazing things I'd ever seen of a traditional Gumbanga man, getting tucker from the bush where he worked on the railway, and he said, he must have thought, I'm going to give the kids a lesson in how to dispatch this thing, how to pluck it. We kept all the quills, and we made necklaces and stuff out of it. But the taste of that led into our culture. I think it was like almost an open door. And it was my grandfather's forward thinking, I think, that introduced us to that stuff that we still give to our kids today.
Yeah, beautiful. It's interesting, isn't it? My great-grandparents laid the railway line up and down the East Coast and ended up in Grafton at a certain point in time. So there's so many beautiful intricacies and interconnected moments between us as artists and blackfellas in this country.
That's right.
Stories that intertwine, those moments of your childhood where you have that sensory, sometimes through food, sometimes through music, sensory portal that opens into,
That's right. I did get off track, sorry.
No,
getting back to where the music first arrived, my Uncle Buddy, who was my mum's youngest brother, still alive, such a rogue, but he went to Sydney and he had a guitar and he kept bringing it back each holidays and taking it back to Sydney. And one time he came up and he had this big afro of hair and it was full of nits. And we called them doolums. So my nan said, Buddy, stop scratching. He said, Mum, I think I've got doolums in my hair. So she said, well, get the bag on, surface spray, and give him a hit and see what happens. Well, these things had a disco on his head. And he was running around the yard scratching his head because they went crazier. And he ended up getting the number one shears and he just got all his hair and cut it off just to get rid of these bloody doolums that he had. But anyway, he brought a guitar up from Sydney every trip and he would sit and he would play things like this. And we were just mesmerised. So he left it there one day in his old room and when he went back to Sydney without the guitar, we'd sneak in and we'd pluck a string. And I think that was the first time I was in love with the guitar. It was creepy because we were thinking like, you know, if we just imagined a chord like that, we'd just pluck the E string and we'd just be mesmerised by the warmth and it was just saying, play me.
Yeah.
But that was my first experience with an acoustic guitar, I reckon.
Well, we're all grateful to Rogue Uncle Buddy.
Uncle Buddy?
Yeah, for leaving his guitar behind. What a blessing we've all had from that. Who believed in you early, before the industry even did?
Oh, that's easy. That's like my mum, my dad as well. My dad being Maltese, he was in Sydney, and he believed in me. It took him a while to understand that what I was doing was a real job. He kept asking me. I'd pull up there with an old EH Holden that was, you know, just hanging on by the skin of its teeth. And he'd say, son, when are you going to get that real job? I said, Dad, this is a real job. It's just that the car, if it was a horse, you'd probably have to shoot it, you know? But he took a little while to believe. But my grandparents, even though I was very young, they believed in me as a person, not just a musician. And they gave me the love and the respect, I think, that you would hope to get from your grandparents. And then I had a guitar teacher, other than my parents, who was like my champion of champions. And she was the one that first discovered that I could actually sing okay. But all I ever wanted to do was to come into class and do this. So I thought I was Tommy Emmanuel. Little did I realise I wasn't even a Band-Aid on his arm. But she was a believer, and she also became not only a teacher, but she was a mentor. If I was having sort of crappy times at home, you know, between my stepdad and stuff like that, she would talk about that even before she would start the lesson. So the lessons became therapy, and she's still a part of my life. She's still beautiful.
Those teachers hang around forever, don't they?
You wish they could.
Yeah, yeah. In spirit.
Yeah.
I met mine when I was 12 and I still meet him every week. I don't know if anyone's read the book Tuesdays with Maury. I've got Tuesdays with Curtis.
Righto, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, after 30 years, you're starting to finally get it. I'm like, Thank you for being a very patient teacher. So it sounds like with those lessons, there was a time when music became not just something that you loved, but something that you needed. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think I needed the music as much as I needed the guitar lessons. And I think what proved it to me was that when I did take those lessons, and I also got pushed by my first cousins, and sometimes it's good to have people around you that push you to be better, because they'd come home and they would know things I didn't know on the guitar, and I'd get a little bit jealous. And I'd say, well, I need to learn that too. So I'd sit down with them and try and nut it out. So I was pushed a bit too. But there was a time when my mum used to work on the trains, and she would go on overnight trips to Sydney from Grafton, and I'd be by myself. And when you're 13 years old, in the middle of 90 or 100 acres by yourself in the middle of the dark, you soon learn to like your own company, and you soon learn to love music. So I had a record player, and I would play it. I'd sit in front of the record player and I would learn Merle Haggard licks and just immerse myself in music and forget about the loneliness that was happening and the fact that I was missing Mum. And it was like my best friend, the guitar. And Lydia, you know what that's like.
I do.
You can't walk past them. They become part of you.
Yeah.
That's why I brought it out today, because I get a bit nervous talking without a guitar. And I think it's...
Should have brought mine. It feels very weird sitting here without it.
Yeah, it does. They become friends and they become your company. And I see the same thing in my children today. I see my daughter Jem playing acoustic and piano. They can't walk past their instruments. And then my son, who hardly shows any love of music, sits down at the campfire the other night after this big broken heart that he's had, and he starts playing me songs that he's written.
That'll do it.
And I
the
just
broken
went,
heart.
I said, where the hell have these things been hiding?
Wow.
I said, go and get yourself hurt a little bit more and maybe you might be able to write some more for our uncle. Just beautiful, and nice to know that that guitar has been, that I bought him when he was probably 12 or 13, it's still a part of his life.
How old is he now?
He's 27.
Wow.
And he said, look, when things went to hell, Dad, he said, there was one constant in my life and that was my guitar that you and Mum gave me. And it's important for them to know that they're not alone. We're always there to yarn to, but sometimes you're just not there. And then there's this thing. So it's helped him a lot, he said. And he's writing some beautiful songs. One day, I think we'll be privileged to hear them, you know?
2 chords and the truth.
That's it.
Or
Maybe
3.
3.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your first gig, your first time on stage, and what that felt like for you?
Yeah, look, I was shitting myself. Never been so scared in my life. It was, our teacher used to do a concert at the end of each year to show all the parents where their hard-earned $3 a lesson was going. And it was at the local Uniting Church Hall, and scary as hell, because you're not only in front of your parents, but you're in front of your friends. And that was probably worse.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. They're the hardest gigs.
Yeah, very, very hard. So here I am just playing away and trying my hardest not to fall apart. I'd get this funny little, my leg would shake, and so it was full-on nerves that I suffered from, because we weren't real confident as kids, but my guitar teacher persevered, but gently. She didn't force us into it, but she said, one week, she said before one of the concerts, you'll be okay to do a solo. And I didn't really understand what the solo thing was. And I went home and I said to Mum, it's going to be great. Next week I'm doing a solo. And she goes, what, by yourself?
Penny drops.
I think I was tricked. And next thing you know, she said, yeah, it's a solo thing. It's just you and your guitar in front of our peers, you know. And I said, oh, I don't think I can do that. I'm sorry. I'm out. She said, oh, no, there's no out. It's already written in the program. So that was the scary moment for me too. That was like the second year in, and overcoming those nerves was tough.
Just guitar, no singing for that gig?
No, it was with a little bit of singing.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because I was sort of starting to become confident enough to sing. But honestly, it was the best thing having her. I only rang her the other day to go along to a choir that she attends now called the Forget-Me-Nots. And it's a bunch of old people from nursing homes that come along together and have a choir. And a lot of them have got dementia, but they can still sing along with the certain words they remember from the past. And I've got to tell you, I just loved You Are My Sunshine, never sounded so bloody good. And it was just beautiful that she can still invite me to something that I get enlightened by.
Yeah.
And that's she's 85 and still teaching me stuff, you know. So
That's a magic experience, isn't it? I'm in ministry, so I spend a lot of time in aged care. We're in high care dementia wards, and people can't remember their kids' names, but they know those old hymns.
Yes.
And there's nothing better than halfway through an old hymn breaking out into a random verse of "You Are My Sunshine," and everyone just goes with it.
yeah. Well, I'd forgotten that song, probably one of the things we learned at her lessons. But yeah, to see some beautiful old people who, it's so popular, they have to take it in turns with the two nursing homes in Grafton, you know, because everyone's just vying for their spots. But this was their Christmas party that I got to go to, and I sang a couple of songs to them, but I got more joy out of sitting in with the choir and with my guitar teacher.
It speaks a lot about the power of music, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
you know, music is an amazing gift on one hand, but it's also something that I think does the rounds like a boomerang. You know, you throw things out, they come back. And I've had that happen many, many times, especially through people coming up to you and letting you know of an experience they might have had. I don't think there's anything more rewarding as an artist to have someone come up and say, I saw this song at this particular show, I was moved to tears or whatever. And that to me is like, it means the world.
Well, that just happened backstage, didn't it?
Yeah.
About last night,
That's
Shadows
right.
on the Hill.
Shadows
Yeah,
on the Hill.
yeah.
And for a song to have so many lives, it's important to know that, you know, you really are a part of the chain. You're not the creator.
Yeah.
Other people take those things for you and make them into something else, and it shares it to another audience, you know, and that's the beauty of music. It just melds into everyone else's lives, you know.
It's got a life force of its own.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your career really didn't arrive overnight.
No, it
It
did
was
not.
built slowly through a lot of touring and a lot of persistence. What did that slow pace teach you?
I've never been a person that thinks it's going to happen overnight. My mum always said, you know, take the long way around. It'll be worth it when you get there. And there is a long way around, and I definitely took that. It was a confidence thing too. Growing up in an Indigenous family where you were put in your box pretty quick. My old grandfather didn't like people skylarking around too much, or big noting as he used to call it. He'd say, don't be a big noter. And we were put in our boxes pretty quick like that, and I think that kept our confidence levels level. We weren't precocious, put it that way. And because of that, humility was the main word I think I looked upon from my grandparents. And as you carry that humility through life, I think you just take your time doing stuff. And if it means taking the long way around the hill, then there's no shortcuts. So it took a long time going through busking on the streets in Tamworth, going into talent quests, losing many, many times. Losing's good for you. It really is. You know, if you win something, it's a big bonus. But yeah, to lose quite a few times before you win something, I think is really important, and it shapes you. You know.
And that groundedness and humility and presence is what people love about your artistry. So on the long road, it has a big payoff.
Yeah, it means it's part of it. I mean, in one of the second Star Maker quests I went into in Tamworth, Keith Urban won, and I mean, he did all right. But the beautiful part about that, catching up with Keith later in life, we reflected on those times a lot. And he was so ready. We were all like really not ready. And it was just obvious. But, you know, you go on to remain friends with these people later in life and you realise that they're not changed that much. It's just that their talents were different and they had a quicker trajectory on to where they were going. And, you know, I still love what I do. I still love to plug a guitar in, and I think that's pretty much why, you know, I'm sitting here having a yarn at Woodford now, is because of the love for the music that we've all created.
Were there moments in that lead up to your success where you nearly walked away?
Oh, there were many moments where I thought I was done. I was in cover bands for years, and in that cover band scene, a lot of the venues would book you and pay you terrible money, but they'd pay you in meals and lots of grog. And when you drink a lot, you sort of think you're doing okay. But a few of those nights there, I'd lay there going, I don't know whether this is for me. I feel like I'm treading water, playing everyone else's music. while I'm laying here full of bourbon and not knowing where my life is going. And so you have a few epiphanies on your way through, but hopefully you're strong enough in your heart to pick yourself up and go, well, the next step should be something that's going to count, not just a cover gig. Maybe it's time to get off your ass and start writing your own songs. And that was the turning point for me.
Do you think that's what pulled you forward out of those moments? Was that the epiphany?
I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was, if you've got something to say, all the songs that have been written in your covers set have something to say. Maybe you've got to find your story and find out who you are. And maybe it's time to dig things out of yourself that you might have thought weren't worth talking about, or whether they were too painful to dig up, all of that. And then you get that little bit of confidence to be a songwriter and find your story. A lot of young people say, where do I start? I say, look, you've got a story. It's time to start telling it, you know.
And that's it. We are a storytelling people, aren't we? Through and through.
I think so. I came from a family with a lot of great storytellers around campfires, and not all of them true. Some of them were true, but not all of them were true, and fun. And some of the stories we hear around the fire were things that I can reflect on in my life on my way through. And there's some things that I've written songs about too, and those stories are very important to us.
You've done something very unique that not many artists have been able to do, in that you've never really made your identity the performance, but you've not hidden it either. Was that a conscious choice, or something that you just grew into?
Okay, quick story. I'm playing soccer. One little kid in my soccer team was very racist. He kept saying that I lived with the Coon family up at South Grafton. And it was very hurtful. And he did it a few weekends, and then I decided I would take him to the Coon family house to come and see how we live. But what I didn't realise was I invited the whole soccer team to Nan's house. The most amount of red jumpers you've ever seen getting out of about 8 cars. So that we all arrive, and Nan said, what are all these kids doing here, Troidel? And I said, I just want to bring them over to show them our house. And she said, I said, they're also here for lunch. So Nan said, well, there's a loaf of bread. You get your best mate there to get the Vegemite out in the butter and start buttering, son. So everyone lined up at the front steps at Nan's. The little racist fella was there. He came in, he got his sandwich, and he sat down with my grandmother. And after that, he never said a word like that again. And we became pretty good friends. But it's not something you turn into or inherit. It's something you learn from your parents. And you have to see the other side. It's very hard to do that sometimes. But that simple lesson that day of inviting all those kids over, we were stealing mandarins from next door. We had a time. But that buttering of that bread and that kid sitting in that humble little house made him realise that we were no different to him. He was from a poor family too, in South Grafton. And it taught us both something. I really fondly remember that. And I think that was a bit of a turning point for me to know that I want to bring people together with music. I don't want to divide people. And that was the impetus, I think, that lesson for me too. I learned something from it too. I learned that you don't have to punch him in the face, because there was enough of that shit going on too, don't worry. Especially the kids that just would continue to badger you until they got a reaction out of you. And that's how you settled it, you know. And that's how it worked in our little street. And but you got to the point where you can't just keep doing that. You have to bring people together in a subtle way. So I learned about unity very early, and I wanted to bring people together. So the reason I was openly okay with my Aboriginality, because I grew up in that family, and we were very proud of who we were, and still am. But the only way to bring people along for the ride is tell the stories that include them too. It's their land they get moved by as well. Uncle Archie Roach put it so well. He said, whether you're black or white and there's a part of this country that resonates with you, that's your country. That is your country to look after and it's your country to take care of as well. You don't have to be Indigenous to do that. But don't leave all your stuff laying around when you go camping. Don't leave broken bottles for kids to walk on in our rivers. You know, it's disgusting the way people treat country. But we are all in it together with that, and Uncle Archie was the first person I ever really heard put it into those words. So I carry them with me. So do you, Lydia. And we carry it into our music too. And Shadows on the Hill is not about blaming anyone. Shadows on the Hill is our story and it's our truth. And all we have to do is come together and own it. That's it.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
Such a timely message, and I was only having this conversation yesterday because I've done a lot of hardcore activist work in my life, and the last couple of years I've been doing something different, and it's the hardest thing in the world to do. You got to love them anyway. And I had a conversation with a woman, and she said to me, elderly woman from a rural Queensland, you know, conservative values, grew up with a certain set of beliefs for who knows what reason. And she said to me, I used to think a certain way about your people and I don't anymore, and I want to thank you for that. And it was just a real moment because I was like, I don't think I ever had that conversation back in the day where I was like, really? You know, and both sides of the work are important. There's no doubt about that. But I think at this time in the world, that message of unity and belonging and what you're saying, Uncle Archie's message, like we all belong here. We are. And our old people had that way of bringing people into the fold. This is part of the work.
They do.
Yeah.
But we belong together. And that's what we've been dealt.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to make it work, you know. And I see my kids doing the same thing in their own little groups of friends. And I've seen a lot of my family do the same thing through their sport and their music and things as well. And it's so much easier to find the things that unite us and than divide us. Don't you reckon? There's so many things we have in common that we should be putting the magnifying glass on instead of the things that just tear us apart. And I think it's so much less energy to be positive towards each other. And it's one thing that makes me feel good about getting out of bed every day. If I was going to do it the hard way, it would be the angry black fella. Well, I just couldn't do it. I just don't have the energy for it. I don't have the energy for the negativity that comes our way.
Yeah.
But what I do have is love for everyone. And I think that's all we have to carry with us, and that hopefully will bring us together. You know?
Thank you.
So much easier, right?
It is. There's an easy way, hard way.
Yes.
Yeah. I grew up with a very angry, passionate black mother, and my rebellion was peace. just chill out, love people. So recognition came. Many Golden Guitar Awards and ARIAs and visibility and the big crowds. Did success when it came feel more like affirmation, or did it feel like a disruption?
Oh, look, my first golden guitar came to me from Slim Dusty. And to look at the photo to this day of his face handing it over to me was like, wow. This is someone I grew up listening to who would, you know, be playing this. And I loved playing along with his records because of his simplicity of his style and how it sounded. And then he's handing me a golden guitar. And I think it was the year before I'd won my first ARIA, which wasn't expected because I was sitting in the crowd. It was going to be Gina Jeffrey's year. And I had a Vinnie's jacket on, sitting next to Tommy Emmanuel. And when all the finalists were read out, Tommy said, I reckon you're going to win this. I said, no way, brother. It's Gina's year, you know. Then they read my name out, and I almost trip up the stairs running up there in disbelief to get up to receive this ARIA award. But from that moment on, I thought, acceptance. I felt acceptance. And it was about an album that was, you know, there's some dark things on my first record about deaths in custody. But there's also a song called Dream Out Loud, which is about unity and bringing people together, you know. So there was every little bit of my life was cut and pasted into this first record that won that ARIA. And then to get the affirmation from someone like Slim saying, you deserve this, and a good little pat on the back, that gave you some confidence. Didn't make my head go too big, just gave me confidence to get to the next step. And when Slim gave me that, I don't think I'll ever forget it. I don't think I'll ever forget the year I had to come to the point of surpassing his golden guitar tally. It didn't sit with me at all. I felt like I should be like Mark Taylor and just declare. But I went to his wife and I said, Joy, I'm having real trouble with this. And she said, what are you having trouble with? I said, well, if I win a golden guitar at the next awards, I'm surpassing Slim's record. We're both on 38. It'll make it 39 for me. And she said, well, Troy, if the music wasn't growing, I'd be worried. It means that we have to surpass these things because Slim's no longer with us. But she said, just on the quiet, she said, if anyone's going to do it, the Dusty family would love it to be you. And that was awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome to hear that.
That's beautiful. And you know, as a father and any good teacher, the greatest thing is to be surpassed. Right?
Oh,
That's
yes.
the whole goal, is to see
totally.
your student way out in front of you, or your child. Or
Yes.
Yeah, it's such
And
an
I'm watching
honour.
the same thing with my daughter Jem, and she's doing the New Year's Eve thing. That's why she couldn't be at Woodford, but she's doing the thing on Sydney Harbour. And I think it's just so beautiful to see that she's going to be showcased on New Year's Eve. I'll be sitting at home at Halfway Creek at my mum's old house, watching it on TV, going, go, Dort.
It's the best feeling.
Oh,
It's
I
the
can't
best.
wait.
So I can understand Slim's wife's sensibility with that one. Makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
it's a tough one to be sitting with Joy McKean, for starters, and asking her opinion on this, because it was a bit cocky of me. I didn't even know whether I was going to win one the next year, but that was the reality. If I had a record out and I was nominated and I did win, I said, it just doesn't sit with me, you know? But it's so nice to get those words from her, and bless her, I always still feel like she's around me. Even when I made the last record, I had 2 funeral services in amongst my lyrics, and one was my late mum and one was Joy McKean. So when I'd finish a take in my mum's old house, I'd look at the photos and go, what do you reckon, girls? Do you think that's all right? Does it cut to the chase and get the job done? And it just felt like they were there. That's for sure.
Their spirit and energy is all over that album.
Very much so.
Yeah. You kind of already touched on this, but what stayed the same about you when success arrived?
Look, I think having kids really does keep humbling you anyway at every given moment. We had a little fella here at the Woodford Folk Festival when he was 2. We were here, and just as the year was about to turn over, the year 2000, everyone was worried about their computers crashing and all that stuff, but all I was worried about was where to change this kid's ass. And it was just so funny because, you know, I look at camping with little children, I see people doing it, and all power to them, but when you've been there and done it, that keeps you humble too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're not going to get a big head changing a nappy in a backstage tent here. And it was just wonderful to be able to continue on being a father. I took my role as a father probably more serious than I took as a musician, even though I was making a living out of it. But we cancelled record releases and all that sort of stuff to be at these pivotal moments in their lives. First day at school, I had to cancel almost the first third of a tour. And the record company at Sony at the time came back and went, what? What's going on? I said, well, I really can't tour. My little fella's starting year 1 and I'm not missing that. So I altered my life and my career to suit my family. And I still would do the same. If there's anything that they need me around for, I would cancel anything that I had to be with them or to help them.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Thanks.
Such a strong message for young dads as well.
And old dads.
And old dads. My husband's a filmmaker and a theatre maker, and he does the same thing. He's like, sorry, I'm not going to be able to accept that award in person that night. I've got a year 4 dance recital.
That's
So,
right.
Yeah.
Or in a Stedford to see.
Oh, yeah.
So many of those for Jem
Yes.
and for Clay. It was like different things that he had on with his schooling, and you just make it work. But I don't think anything needs to change. You need to just work in and around their lives,
Yep.
so that, you know, when they go on and be adults, they might see the same when they have kids and cherish it as much as I did.
And there's a way to flourish in fatherhood and be an artist. That is such an important story to share in the world.
I would hope so. I mean, I used to write songs for them about killing cockroaches with thongs and things, and you just make stuff up. My father used to do the same to me, my Maltese dad. When I'd go to visit him on holidays, he would make up these stories on the guitar that included me. it was all about Troy walking through the bush and running from a kangaroo or whatever it was. And I would be just so besotted with the story. I did the same with my kids. And, you know, when you write them little songs that they still reflect on today, I wrote a little song that sort of, it was called Clay the Rocket Boy. It went, Clay the Rocket Boy, Clay the Rocket Boy, flies up to the stars, maybe even Mars. He's got dreams, you know, no one can destroy. That's my little man, Clay the Rocket Boy. So at a men's camp 2 years ago, he looks at me across the camp and he goes, Dad, am I still your rocket boy? Job done.
Yeah. Success. That's beautiful. Yeah. Is there anything that success quietly asked of you?
Yeah, it's a good question, Lydia. I think it asks of your time. And time is something you can't buy. So you've got to be very careful which time you spend when your career asks you for more and more. And sometimes it comes at a cost. It might be a financial cost. I take some festivals that are worth nowhere near what a big one's worth, but you do it for this year. You don't do it for any other reason. And that little festival might need you there. And I'm not trying to big note and make out I'm sort of anything different. I'm sure everyone else does it. But Russell Crowe has a bit of a saying. He said, when I make a film, I make one for me and one for them. And that's just like doing gigs. I think it's beautiful to have the choice, but the time is something you can't buy back. And if that time is better spent with your kids or your family or even an uncle that needs you for a day to help you paint half of a house or something, I'd rather take that time. It's currency.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean anything about money, but it's currency, time. It's one thing I think success and career ask for, and you've got to be very gentle with which ones you choose.
My son is just about to turn 20 and move interstate, and I'm a hot mess at the moment
You would be.
trying to prepare to say goodbye. And it's just that moment where you're like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
there's no going back. And I'm very grateful that I made similar decisions to you.
Yeah.
But you still feel like, oh, I just wish I could do it all again.
Well,
Maybe not the sleepless nights. For
there's a
2
lot of
years,
stuff
but-
you can't take back, eh? Sleepless nights are awful when you're in the middle of them, but what you'd give to have one more, you know?
Anything, yeah.
And I remember the days are real long and drawn out and you're tired and you'd kill to have 2 hours extra sleep when the alarm goes off. But now, we're older, you're up at bloody 5:30.
Yeah, it's rough.
What's with that?
As soon as you
Or
get
going to bed at 5:30. You know, and I say to my kids, you're so lucky you can sleep until 11 o'clock, you little dogs. But I sometimes would kill to be able to sleep. But even in my swag, it wasn't hot. It was beautiful. I got up at 6. Now, why in the hell am I getting up at 6 o'clock for? But that's just how life goes. But time is a currency, I reckon. It's something you've got to spend very wisely. And I've found that there's some things I regret. I mean, sometimes my daughter will say, you know, when you were away, Dad, we used to really miss you. And one morning I used to get up and tap the razor when I was shaving on the sink. And my daughter, in the middle of an interview at the Opera House, said how much that traumatised her, and I felt so bad. She said, when I'd hear you having a shave, I knew you were going, Dad. And I would go, oh, don't tell me that now. I don't want to cry in front of people again. But these things affect their lives too. And I'm sure that when she came on the road with myself and my crew and got to see what music was all about, she knew what the tapping of that razor meant. Dad was going to do something to make a living, but he loved it. And she doesn't shave her face, but she now dresses up to get an early flight. And when I dropped her to the airport the other day, got the hug, I went, fly. That's what we're destined to do. We build the nest, it's your job to fly. Yeah. And I'm okay with it. Takes a bit of getting used to, Lydia.
I'm not there yet.
Strap in,
Thank you.
sis, strap
Thank
in.
you. Thank
Empty
you.
nest, look out.
Oh, I know, it's tough. I'm going to pivot a little bit because your journey sits inside a much bigger story as well. Because Aboriginal people in this country were shaping country music long before they were ever acknowledged for it. Every single Aboriginal family has memories sitting around listening to Charlie Pride and George Jones and Slim, and it's just part of life, right?
Yes.
And those early days of singing country music in this country as well were so pivotal. When people talk about the roots of country music, what do you hear them not saying?
Well, the roots of country music for me were, first of all, there'd be little sit-downs on a Sunday afternoon when my grandparents didn't drink, but if they had their kids come over, uncles and aunties, they'd have a couple of little quiet beers, but they'd have the record player going. And everyone's had a record player at some stage of their life. Everyone knows what it's like to play any sort of music in a house. The thing that was the fabric of our upbringing was country music. And someone asked me in America why a young Indigenous singer would have been drawn to a predominantly white music. And I said, it's a good question. I said, but when you listen to Hank Williams' old songs, and those old fellas, Hank Williams went on to inspire many, many generations of people, but his songs were very melancholy. They told of these sad stories. The sadness and the intergenerational trauma that my grandparents went through was relatable with this music. And they could relate to things about people leaving, about people being under control, or people breaking up. They love the break-up songs. And I don't think any of the Daley sisters, my mum included, stayed with a husband. They all had trouble. So if there was a song like, today I started loving you again, and I'm right back to where I've really always been. We'd hear songs like that and we'd go, yep, that's my uncle and auntie breaking up yesterday. And it was just part of our lives. And it's, like I say, it becomes the fabric of your life. And they are my memories of growing up at Nan's. And you had to be really respectful of the radiogram, they used to call it. They'd say, don't you scratch the records, put them away nice, wipe them off. And my mum was exactly the same. And my mum's record collection, which I still play today, is still there right next to the record player. And if I'm looking for inspiration or I've just been out painting the house and I'm just about to sit down and have a cold drink, I'll put a record on. And it sort of reminds me of the simplicity of life when you go and do that. And the fact that you have to go back and change it halfway through is a bit of a pain in the arse. But that's all right, because then I can hear it scratching where it's finished and I have to go and turn it over. Then I put it on, hear the pop and the crackle. It's just amazing because it takes me back to being a kid. And we've all got those memories. Once again, another little thing that unites us is our love of music, our love of every form of whether it was a CD player when it first came out or those vinyls, or back to a 78, you know, when you had to wind it up. I even saw one of them at my great uncle's place. So yeah, it's affected me a lot, but it was in a good way.
I think for many of us, country music isn't just a style, it's a survival. Do you think there's something about the very simplicity or style or tone of the music as a genre itself that carries grief and carries faith and memory in a particular way?
Oh, look, country music's always been about memories. It's always been about... I learned how to deal with grief after losing people early in my life. My nan and pop didn't make it into their 70s. They were in their 60s. They worked really hard. They died early in my life. And country music was like the cushion between them having to leave and then me having to be able to survive as a kid, then to go into another house once Nan and Pop's house was all changed. And it was really big changes for me. And it was like music was the only place, once again, when Mum would go on the overnighters, I'd hide in music, you know. It was my place. And I think I learned so much about how to deal with grief. After losing my mum, it was terribly hard. Single parent mother, you know, only child. It was a tough call, losing her 3 years ago. But music was the one that I think would really help me get off my backside and make it go and just get on with life. I was hard to be around too. Just ask my wife. Just not myself. And it takes a while. Our sorry business is long. We don't make any apologies for that, but it's hard. We don't just click and get over it and say, oh, well, life goes on. In ours, it's heavy, it's long, it's drawn out, and it tests everyone around you too, believe me.
Were there, throughout your career, particularly your songwriting career, were there truths that you felt safer to sing than you felt safe to speak out loud about Aboriginality and what goes on in this country sometimes?
Oh, look, you know, the first song I ever released was called Dream Out Loud, and it's about black and white just getting on. I thought it was that simple, but it's not. It was a real naive view of how to bring people together. But Buddy Guy, the blues man, said, if there's something is too risky to say, then sing it. And it's a beautiful way to put it because it's so true. So I took a little bit of that, what Buddy Guy said, and I started to just experiment on certain things that were truth-telling that I hope in Australia that we can own together. And I know it's not pretty. Our past is not pretty. It's not shiny. Some of it's a little bit embarrassing for all of us, you know. But I think I was in Europe earlier in the year where there's 5 or 6 layers of history in one place, you know, where everyone tends to just own it and say that's when the Turkish came in and took over, and that's when the Spaniards came in and took all the gold and all that, but they just seem to get on with life and own it. And we've got 2 layers of history here in Australia. We just need to own it, be honest with each other, and take that truth-telling as a gift. I think it's more of a gift than anything. We've got an old culture here that's beautiful, that we can still learn from. And I would find those 2 layers of history should be pretty easy to get on with, but we struggle sometimes. But I don't give up. Never give up. Ever.
Yeah. It's a beautiful advantage to have 2 layers of culture and history and story to resonate with and come from.
It only dawned on me when I was in my dad's native country of Malta, and the amount of stuff that went on there with Arabic people coming in, Turkish, Italians, getting bombed by the Germans during the war, and the Italians because they were siding with the British. And yet you walk around with them Maltese people and they're just so happy-go-lucky. They're just going up the street, get a pastizzi, hanging out, having a coffee. And one of my friends over there that I met when we did Who Do You Think You Are, his name's Arthur Cassar, no relation, but there's a million of them over there. And we sat down having a coffee, and he was going through the layers of history, and it dawned on me that I've got to come home and make that relatable to Australia, and hopefully we can just learn from that. And like I say, it's a big ask, but I just think it's important to know that we've got something that is a big advantage. I'm still learning. I still learn about stories, black and white. I still learn about things, and I'm hungry at 56. I'm not going to lose that hunger. And I think young people right through to older people in their 70s and 80s and 60s, just be hungry to learn, because we take that with us and we give it to the next generation. Even with Briggs there last night, being able to get on stage with a younger generation, young fella who you can give a song to, who turns it into something else. Yeah, it's got a lot more crankiness and everything in there. And my mother said, why does he have to swear, Troy? I said, because he's a rap artist, Mum. Every second word is F. So he takes it to his audience and they invite me up to sing it, and I sing my parts, he sings his parts. And what is that? That's just a little bit of a gift of a song, a little bit of knowledge that comes with being older. And if you can do that on your way through, then I think the game is in good hands, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's an explosion of country music happening right now. It's having a moment. It's always had a moment, but it's in the mainstream context. And there's also a big reckoning. And around the world, people are really re-examining the black roots of country music, realising that so many of the sounds and stories that they thought were shaped by people were actually shaped by other people. And I think about a gig that I played at the Recital Centre in Melbourne, and a banjo player with me, and one of my Aboriginal close Aboriginal friends was like, that's the whitest instrument, isn't it? But it's not.
It's not. It's from Africa.
It comes from Africa. Who knew?
And you're right. I think that the really interesting part is when I was in Nashville, I wanted to see all music, you know. So I'd go down to Music Row. I would learn to write songs with people there. I was down at the Hall of Fame. I saw there wasn't much mention of old black musicians there, but in reality, Hank Williams went down to an old black man's house and was taught guitar. And that was the way he started to learn to write music. I'm sure he might have picked up phrasing from him and stuff like that. And then I thought, well, I want to go and see a black choir somewhere. Where am I going to go? So I got in a cab from downtown. An African-American fella pulled up and got me. And he had Jesus Loves You hanging on his rear vision mirror. And I said, right, sir, where can I find a church on Sunday where there's lots of gospel singing? And I wanted to go and experience that too, because I knew about Hank Williams' mentor. And he said, well, son, he said, I'll pick you up tomorrow morning from your motel. And I said, well, you let me know how much. He said, oh, no, I won't have you pay to spread the word of the Lord to Australia. I went, all right. So next minute, I'm in this church. And it is going off. I've never seen anything like it. And he was like in practice to be one of the ministers who gets up and does all the stuff. But the old fellow that was doing the stuff was doing a great job. Yeah. And his nickname was Tank, this fellow that picked me up because he's a big lad. And he looked at me and he said, what do you think, kangaroo boy? That was my nickname then by then. And I said, well, this is pretty amazing, Tank. And I said, I'm happy just to get another cab downtown when we finish here. He said, oh, no, you got to come over for lunch. So what an experience in a day to see what he had just, charitably just came and got me in his normal personal car, out to his house, to the church, and then we had lunch. And they were all fascinated with Australia, my background. He asked about who I was, and I showed him photos of my grandparents and stuff, and they were just the most beautiful people in the world to be around. But once again, at that age, I was maybe in my mid-20s to 30. I just felt like I'd learned something about another mob of people that I didn't know anything about. And then once he dropped me back off, he said, kangaroo boy, he said, keep in touch. So every year that I went back for the next 5 years, I was in Maurice's cab going to church on a Sunday. And it was awesome.
That's cool. Friends for life.
Friends for life.
Yeah. So when you think about the reckoning that's happening, particularly with African American reclaiming the sound, do you see parallels here as well?
Oh, look, I do. I mean, I grew up with the music. I grew up with Slim Dusty like every other artist did. And I know there's a big overwrought feeling of the love for the American country music, which is great. The young generation now are starting to take a little bit more pride in lyrics again, which I think is what people are connecting with, which is a really wonderful thing. There's some really good songwriters that come out and ply their trade. But for me, and to be able to come along as an artist to share stories, I think those stories are the things that we hope keep resonating with people. You might have one song in your set, Lydia, that people come up and ask for what album it's on each night you play. And when you do have that, that's just called connection. Or you see a young kid down the front at a place called Bairnsdale in Gippsland, and a young boy's singing every word to this song called Windradine, And he was only about 10. And I said to him afterwards, why do you like that song? He said, I love it. He said, I feel like I'm with Windradine when you sing the song, running with him through the bush. And I said, wow, what an imagination this little Jarjum's got, But that's connection, I guess. And to me, there's no better feeling than feeling like there's some connection with a lyric that you've written that you intend to impart to people. It's not bashing anyone about history. It's a gift. And it's 2 layers of history that we've got to deal with. But it's a gift. Our history is a gift. And I'm just as interested in the white history too, because I go ahead and educate myself on every side of the story, so that when I'm yarning with people, I should know about Arthur Phillip. I should know who Governor Macquarie was. I should know what he did. I should know what he stood for. I should know what Bennelong was all about too. That's my job, to know every facet of the story, so that when I talk to people, I'm not just talking from one perspective, not just the Aboriginal perspective. I want to know it all, so that we're all together and educated together. And that's important to me.
So in terms of the boom that's happening with country music, it's louder, it's bigger, it's more commercial, it's on our, on our radios, not just the country music stations anymore. When you talk about the imagination that a good song can invoke in somebody, like you were just saying with the lyrics. Is that what excites you about the boom as well?
I think it is the imagination in the lyrics. It's the stories, though. I mean, a Luke Combs song where he talks about his brother and his brother going off the rails and being the rebel of the family and stuff. And it's this full-on story. You feel like you're actually on this Harley Davidson with his brother. You know, loose as a goose. And it's this sense of freedom that comes along with that. And we want everyone to come along for the ride. Like when that little kid said he felt like he was running through the bush with Windred on, I wouldn't have imagined that. I sort of felt like I was trying to tell his story as best I could. I didn't imagine a 10-year-old would feel like he's actually in the story. And I guess that's the part and parcel of what these new generation songs are too. People immerse themselves in the stories.
When you see your genre infiltrate all other genres and infiltrate the mainstream space, is there anything that worries you?
No, there's no worry. I mean, you know, I think for me, it's just great that the music has made contact again. It goes in cycles, you know. Country was huge when Slim was about, and Slim had a dedicated audience of people that wanted to come and watch him, and they weren't predominantly white people. They were Guri people too. Black people loved him. He used to drive in a Fairlane and a bloody caravan up to Pepmanardi. Now, if he's bothering to go up there, he's got an audience, you know. And when you go into the bush, when I went up to the Kimberley this year, I went up and visited some good old friends, the Pigram brothers in Broome, and then I went up into Derby and caught up with a couple of the other Pigram brothers and old elders over there. You know who the king of the Kimberley still is? Slim Dusty. And if I don't get out there without playing at least 3 songs, I'm going to get my ass kicked. And you better know the good ones. So he's had this effect on everyone. Now that connection was huge and it's still there. And we might even have, I think, a Slim song in the set for this afternoon, because I think it's only fair as the next holder of that music is to continue letting one of those songs drift around the rafters with us to keep his memory alive, because he's been an important person in our country and our music.
Such a big legacy.
Oh, it's huge. And the new people that are coming through, they're going to be setting their own legacies, you know, and one day when my record's broken, I'm sure I'll be long gone by the time, you know, people get more than 45 golden guitars. It's going to be done. But if Slim was getting golden guitars when he started, he would have had 150.
Yeah.
You know, because he started in the late 40s, early 50s, and you know that the golden guitar started in 73. So, you know, credit where credit's due. He would have had way more than 45.
You have never really positioned yourself as a spokesperson, but you are one anyway. And you have such a deep warmth, generosity, humility. Thank you so much for your presence and what you bring to all of our lives. This is probably going to be a tough question, and it's the last one for somebody who is so grounded and humble. But let's say you're in your 80s and you're sitting back on your veranda at home and you're looking back on your mark on country music in this country. What do you hope that your legacy is?
Legacy's a big word. I would hope that if you've brought a couple of people together through your lyrics and on your journey writing music, then you've done okay. And whether it's a young kid that comes up with a photo and he says, I met you at the Queenscliff Folk Festival and this is when I was 10 and now I'm 20 and can I get an updated photo? That's your legacy. You've touched someone in the nicest possible way. And I would hope that any lyrics you write might be able to be around and played on someone's little Spotify list if they've still allowed to rob any music office. It'd be nice if they're still getting programmed every now and then, just so the music can hang around when I'm gone. I'd like that too. 1 or 2 songs here and there, I don't care. But that'd be nice. But can I finish with a tune just to say goodbye?
Please do, thank you.
And I just want to say thank you for coming and hanging with us, and thank you very much to Lydia for the beautiful questions, eh?
Thanks, Rhoda.
I want you to take this with you in your heart. From me, because I love you. Some days are better than others. Some days I miss my mother. Some years make me feel like I've lived 10. To get through the Christmas cheer and think of who we lost that year, and the whole damn thing rolls round again. I look in the mirror and all I see is my old man staring back at me every day. 'Cause every time I speak out loud, I only try to make him proud. I think I know just what he'd say. He'd say, some days are better than others. Some friends I see as brothers. And some days you need to talk to other men. If you worry about what people say, you're gonna worry your life away, son. It just ain't worth it in the end. No. I hear the bell, I'm in the ring. Bitter tears like punches sting and laid me lower than I've ever been before. I swerve and weave and get back up. I must remember how to duck when trouble comes a-knocking at my door. Step by step, I'm still learning. I won't stop till the day I die. Well, I know my spirit is returning, but for a while there I didn't want to try. 'Cause some days are better than others. Some days I really miss my mother. She made me the man I am. If we worry about what people say, we're gonna worry our lives away. It just ain't worth it in the end. Some days are better than others, my friends. Some days are better than others, my friends. Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Truly, such a special insight from Troy and Lydia. Please, one more round of applause, folks. You can catch Troy playing at the Amphigram tonight at 6:40 p.m. I believe it's his only performance, so I'd say it's worth putting in your calendar. Lydia will be back here for the same time tomorrow and the next day with some other special guests. What have we got up next? We've got a quick turnaround and none other than Dr. Carl and Monica Richter to talk all things cost of living. In terms of how I like to schedule my things, I use the Woodford app. You can download it, you can schedule things, you can get it to send